When I see our railroad tracks, I don't see traffic. Most of the time there's nothing using these tracks at all. This is the major rail line between two of the largest cities in our country. Let's all count the number of tracks together. 1. Let me do the math. How many potential directions are there between these two big cities? 1, 2. What this means is our entire rail system depends on very complex coordination. They have to make sure they schedule the trains so that one train doesn't run into another. One mistake is catastrophic. Each time each train has to pass another, they have to schedule one of them to get to a siding and wait. In the 1800s, this might have made sense. Scheduling a train down these tracks is so complicated, America's national train system, Amtrak, operates buses. I'm standing here on this main line. No trains coming this way, and no trains coming this way. I'm standing just a few feet away from a major freeway. Now, if we could just move some of the freight and some of the passengers that are up there on that roadway over to these railroad tracks, both of these resources would be working to efficiency and we wouldn't have so many pissed off people over there.
This is the Train Control Center for Southern California. In these days of increased security level, they don't want me to announce where it is. These are the people who control our tracks, just like air traffic controllers.
Over here is our weather. We're connected up to the weather all the time. Right now it's telling us that we got some heavy winds coming in at these locations.
This is serious stuff. It's a little easier controlling 2 dimensions on fixed rails rather than the 3 dimensions of the sky, but that also guarantees there's no such thing as a near miss.
How much distance do you keep between trains?
It varies. In the rush hour, it runs on 20-minute intervals. The track occupancy is caused by the train and gives it the red. And these are all the control points where I give them the signals, and we attach a label onto the red mark, and it tracks the train. So that's where we know where the trains are. And then the blue are guys that are working on the tracks, and that's my way of protecting men or women on the track. Just from what I understand, I think they've got right now the way it is with about the maximum amount of service that they can provide, I think, on this line anyway.
When you're talking trains, there is a capacity limit. You know, with a railroad, if you got 10 miles of railroad with only 2 points to pass a train in a single track with 2 sidings, obviously X amount of trains can fit in that time slot, and with 10-15 minute headways because of the signal system to run at maximum authorized speed. There's signal blocks. The train doing 80 miles an hour. The train to the rear of him can only be so close to operate at that maximum speed also. So yeah, there is capacity issues. You need, the more double track you have and the more sidings, the more trains you can fit in.
If they give me more trains, I'll try to work them as best I can.
If they want to run more trains, they need more track.
Right.
That's the bottom line. I mean, because during the rush hour, we max out. That's just the way it is. We just max out during the rush hour. Like this line, they can't. The only reason why you don't have trains leaving at 7, 8 is because we can't fit them in there. There's nowhere to put them. Counterflow trains, we can't run counterflow because we got. This is the part that we might have 145 trains, but we got to get 145 of them in there before the 145 can leave. And then they got to get them out to make room for the next ones coming in. And that's what makes it tough.
And essentially that's because you're limited by the single track places, and you have to figure out how to get the trains past those single track
That's on every
places.
line just about. You go up in the Antelope Valley, you have the same thing. You got
It makes sense for a train to leave one point and have to go out here and hold for 20 minutes to let 4 or 5 trains go by.
Yeah,
you know.
because the space is
right.
there.
Yeah.
And that's what the biggest problem.
2-hour trip now is a 3.5 hour trip because he's meeting trains. It just doesn't make sense.
You're validating, I guess, my point.
Yeah, definitely. We need more track.
You need more double track because you've got 2 directions. If you could have one side of the track just all going one way and the other side of the track all going the other way, you could cram the trains a whole lot closer together.
Yeah, it's a pretty accurate statement.
That's
That's it.
Okay.
There's a rocket scientist out there.
When you have a track, one single track, and trains going in two directions, it's quite a challenge to be able to program the trains around each other so they're not hitting each other head on. There have been a lot of little capital improvements. There have been a number of sidings that we've put in, but there are a lot more to do. And as long as we do not have a local sales tax like most of the other counties in Southern California, our ability to put in improvements is limited. And to the extent that we can, we will build as many sidings as possible so that eventually the sidings to sidings will connect. And then you'll wind up with a double track. It's important for me to tell you that we have done more without a sales tax than most of the counties with a sales tax. And that's because we've been fairly flexible in how we fund. We could not do some of those things, however, without a good working relationship with Los Angeles. And that's because the kinds of monies that we've made the Metrolink system use, which is federal, originally Metrolink wouldn't use any federal money. And basically what we were able to do is working with our partners, because we were both on the same line, they take some of our money that comes in as capital only, and the bill gets paid into a pot, if you will, and it's actually Los Angeles dollars that are paying the operating up here, and we're paying their capital. So we basically swap it back and forth. We're paying our full share, but it's the color of money issue that, because we're working with larger agencies that don't have color of money issues, that we can move the money back and forth. That's what complicates the issue of going, providing service to Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara has considerably less money than we have, and there's no ability to leverage or utilize the federal funds between our two counties because we're using them as much as we can. So that makes providing any kind of service other than Amtrak service, that's the kind of thing that doesn't come out of the local pocket. It's basically your share of state money. Most of the money that comes in on the federal side is formula driven. It's based on the number of rail miles that you have. It's also based on the number of passenger miles and a whole bunch of very archaic formulas. So the Metrolink system and the rail that we currently have in the county is what's generating the money. So it's rail money, and we don't necessarily use all of the rail money for rail. It might go into Vista, for example, or something else. When it comes back to us, it's colorless, if you will, except that it's for rail, it's for transit capital purposes. But it's been generated by either the rail service, in some instances the bus service, and then it comes back into money that comes to this county. Part of it's population driven, and the other part of it is rail miles driven, or bus miles driven.
Okay, now I'll fill in the blank. In the minds of your average citizen, any money that is being spent on anything other than freeway construction is a waste of taxpayer funds. In the late 1990s, the Los Angeles light rail system was considered such a financial boondoggle that there was an initiative passed that prevented the county from spending any future federal matching funds on rail construction. Folks, I can't write stuff like this.
So it's not the volume of people or people's desire to use them. Is when you have trains that don't operate all day long and all evening long, you have less opportunities to get on the train and go. People that have a relatively fixed work schedule can take the train easily. But if you're going to Los Angeles on that train and all of a sudden you have to get home in the middle of the day, you can't do that very easily on the train because there's no train running then.
I will add, we can't provide for people going towards Los Angeles for other purposes like shopping, entertainment, games, midday meetings, or weekend excursions. It's rush hour commute only.